All right, welcome everyone. We are in is this the third episode? Our third session?
Uh, no, it's fourth or fifth. We did three on the Federalist Papers, and I think we did the Indians before that.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm losing track already.
Probably number five or six.
All right, so this is the Minotaur Book Club. We are the Minotaur is an image from mythology based around the idea of taking things from the gods, the Minotaur, or from getting things that were contributed for the public good and using them for personal use. Is the origin of the story. It goes into much more detail, and sometimes a little bit seedy, so we won't go into more details about that. But we just wanted we want to put together something sort of look and reflect of when are we taking the social programs that we have and turning them to personal use. It's not the first time it's happened. Won't be the last time that it's happened. We tend to repeat these cycles. One of the things that Arnie is working on is a thing that he calls very cleverly historical amnesia. And that's the thing that we're dealing with. So our goal here with the Minotaur Book Club is to go back and look through a variety of different things from the past, recognize ourselves in the past, think of what they did in those circumstances, and then bring it forward into the future and see what we can do currently to adopt some of those same things and maybe not repeat some of the same mistakes as the past. So, anything you want to add in, Arnie?
No, you did good. Let's move on. Let's get to common sense.
Let's get the
There's
common
not
sense.
enough of it.
We don't have enough of it today. So there we go. So our book for today was Common Sense by Thomas Paine. And so we have a few topics here that we thought we could start with and kick off. But if you find something else that you want to get to that you think is more pertinent, then we can certainly build on top of that or build out. I'll save sort of logistically up front. Try to sort of police yourselves to keep your responses to within 1 or 2 minutes, so we can just have more back and forth and more pieces. If you have a thing where you're like, hey, I'd like to really set up a conversation topic, it might take me 3 or 4 minutes, just go ahead and say so, so that we know that we'll give you the space to do, a longer sort of setup there. And then we'll go back to, back and forth, generally about a minute or so for each person. There will always be more. If we do it by a minute per minute, then there will always be more chances to talk. So, oftentimes last thing logistically is oftentimes it can get to a little bit difficult back and forth on Zoom because there might be delays and you might be speaking and somebody else speaks or all this kind of. So the hand raising feature can be very helpful for that. It's in various different places based upon where your which version of Zoom that you have, but it should be in your bar down at the bottom. I can't raise mine because I am screen sharing right now. But this should be down there. Maybe sometimes it's under the reaction button. You can raise hand, or sometimes it's a button by itself that just says raise hand. So that's it for our logistics. All right.
Can I start off with origins?
Yeah, let's start off with origins. Let's see. Yeah. Go ahead and give us a question.
Yeah, he makes the wonderful distinction between that if people lived by morality, government would be necessary. But since we do not live by morality, government is necessary to control our baser instincts, or our passions, as the founders would say. But in modern times, it becomes interesting because Margaret Thatcher, who was a neoliberal premier of England, said that there is no such thing as society, and that government is not necessary. And I think we get a lot of problems today because of that difference, modern difference from Tom Paine, who had it right. We need normative control common ground in society as much as possible. And the government is evil, but we need it, as opposed to the statement the government is the problem and let's just get rid of it and let rational choice in the marketplace make the best of all possible worlds.
Yeah, I thought it was a interesting point that stood out to me as I was reading through that part, as that sort of setup, sort of lays out that we naturally form societies. I think he's a little bit too strict and like a little bit too polarized for my taste in his, some sense of absolutes. But historically, we get together and we form societies in that are important for us to survive, and then we get to a certain size wherein we outgrow or there's too much for us to deal with, I think, and so and we can't know everybody in town. And once you can't know everybody in town and you're large enough, you need some kind of representation. And that's what I saw in there is he's putting forward that was the birth of the use of government, and classifying it as the whole point of that structure is to keep people from getting out of line, because they no longer have a personal connection. And I think some of that is very true. So, what do other people think?
I guess this is as good as place at any. Yeah, the one thing I think it was in the same part of the pamphlet, near the beginning, where he was talking about just that point of having representatives for the people, and I thought it was interesting. He made the point about as a colony grows, you need more representatives, and I think the number he mentioned, at that time was like 380, and in Congress right now we're barely past that in the House of Reps, right? So I know it's been a long time since we've increased that number, but he made that point, and I know that argument's been made recently that we need to increase that number, and clearly it hasn't, but he tried to break it down as to why we need more reps as the colony grows. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point, Brandon. I think each representative now covers what, 760,000 people. There's no way they can have a sense of what we want with that kind of a spread. But then, how do you manage a Congress of 10,000 people?
Well, right, and I guess it's more complex, right? Because that number is just at the federal level. Of course, people have local representatives too, so they're not only being represented by the 435. So I do understand that point, but I just found it interesting that he threw out the number. I think he said 380. I just found it interesting.
Yeah, to build off the point of representation, one of the things that I found interesting too is, in addition to reading this book, I also read some additional, I guess, just a biography of Thomas Paine. And one of the things that he was a big proponent of was unicameral legislators, as opposed to like bicameral, which kind of caused some controversy among people like John Adams and some others. And it was just interesting to see, like, I guess, his thoughts and proposed ways in which government should be established versus how it ultimately ended up being established.
think I missed that part on the unicameral, but it reminded me of our going back to the book about the Haudenosaunee. And I remember they were saying that they were trying to do unicameral, but some of the people in the Continental Congress didn't like that, or they didn't want equal representation. They wanted, or they didn't want populist-based representation, and so of course that was the whole point of the Senate versus the House, is like two different votes as to how we should decide this. Some people felt it should be population-based, and some people felt it should be equal between each of the different colonies. So they said, all right, I guess we'll do both. I don't know, is that working for us? If we looked backwards, would we pick differently?
I don't think anybody foresaw the development of political parties that would really become institutionalized in the whole way that we run our government. So the idea is great, but there was no provision or idea that partisanism would really play the most important role.
Although, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is like a lot of the reasons that they called out the horribleness of parties was because Britain had two major parties, and nothing ever got done. And so a lot of my memory of this was that a lot of what they were really calling out was like, for God's sake, United States, don't do what Britain did and have two parties. But inevitably we ended up just having two parties. So fortunately, we fell into the same gap. I don't know if it was because people were used to that, or, we get around to points like this. I mean, we had a third party when Republicans came in, and there was the Whigs, and we decided to not have three parties, but to let one of them die and get back to two parties again. And unfortunately, that's the way it all happens.
One of the things I found interesting is that even like at the time, within the group of Americans that were opposed to British rule, there was kind of almost a sort of two parties, or at least two modes of thought, where some were like, we should protest and fight against British rule, but we shouldn't necessarily go full independence, while in Thomas Paine's view, they should go full independence and protest against British rule. And part of what made Common Sense so powerful is that it kind of persuaded a lot of people that independence was inevitable and overall good for the United States.
And I think that the arguments that he made appeal to both, I'm going to call them factions. Where the divide was primarily in colonial America, you had people who were more industrialized, or they were benefiting from trade and not necessarily from the direct sale of farm products. You had the more agricultural group. So each was going to see independence in a different manner. But I think that his arguments were so appealing because he showed every single way that economically both types of interests would be served, both city people and also rural people. And there was just there was a great way, in his estimation, to pay for all this too. So I think it was just so compelling. I hadn't read it in about 25 years. So it was so much fun reading it and saying, oh, that's right. I felt persuaded. I was ready to take up arms against the Brits.
Yeah. Well, I had never read it, and I think if I did read it 25 years ago, it wouldn't have, I think, hit me the way it did reading it now. But yeah, no, I'm really glad I read it. Yeah, I mean, just real quick, speaking of the two parties, I did remember this excerpt, and I just found it because it mentioned the Whigs near the bottom. I don't know if this was intended to like steer away from political parties, but he says, let the names of Whig and Tory be extinct. and let none other be heard among us than those of good citizen, open and resolute friend, and virtuous supporter of the rights of mankind and of the free and independent states of America. So he does say, drop the Whig and Tory part. He mentions that here. So.
One of the things that I guess has been a lingering question for me while reading the book related to parties is kind of like, what was the party landscape in the like pre-independence United States? Was it just like completely no parties, or did they kind of copy British parties where they had a Whig component? If anyone has any insight into that, it'd be greatly appreciated, because I was struggling to find any sources.
I'll see if anybody else has any direct and official sources first. I have not done the research into that to know for certain, but I can cobble together certain thoughts that I know based upon things that I'm familiar with. So I remember.
Well, I know there was a pro-Tory party that wanted to stay with the Brits.
Yep. I think those were called the Whigs, if I'm correct.
I think you're right.
So I am not a historian or expert, but in this he distinctly says Whig and Tory. So he distinguishes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So maybe we have.
They must have been groups at that time, because he mentions them at the bottom of the pamphlet.
Okay. The other ones that I know that came up, it's in the Hamilton, musical and everything. So, but it's the socialist Democrats and the Democratic Republicans, which my understanding of it was kind of the difference between Greek democracy and Roman democracy. And going back to the social democrats wanted more direct representation of the average people in the ruling process, and less of hiring somebody to go and do all the governing for you. And that was the clash, and I think that led to the whole comment by Franklin when the Constitutional Congress was done, and say, what did we get? And we got a republic. So, and that was a reference that I saw in a lot of the resource materials to that debate. Will we have a government which is directly from the people, or will we have where people rotate in on an ongoing basis, or will we have a republic with gracefully hired employed people who that is their job, is to represent you in government? And the Continental Congress chose the latter, and so that's what we have. But there's still people that are kind of fighting against it. Power to the people, and that led to a lot of like states' rights. Federal government don't tell me what to do. It's up to us to figure out how to govern ourselves. You are in this little box and you only get to do these things. Versus the Republicans, which Hamilton was part of that, who said that yes, government should be taking over this thing and that thing and this thing and that thing, because it's the best one to be able to run all those things. So
Some good
that's
insight.
we had
Thank
four
you.
parts. Sorry, John, what was that?
I was just saying that's some good insight. Thank you for that context.
Yeah, I went down a deep dive. Somehow I got off on the quote. Oh, somebody was chatting online and was giving the phrase. It was like, we're not a democracy, right? We're a republic. And so I was crafting up a response. And it's like, yes, we are a republic. We are officially designated as a republic. We were founded as a republic, but a democratic republic, a republic that uses democracy. So it's not that we're not democratic, but yes, our structure is electing people to represent us in a democracy instead of us participating in the democracy directly ourselves. All right. Should we talk about the evils of monarchy? It's a favorite subject of
Yeah.
mine. All right. Do you want to give a launch in, Arnie?
No, you got to forgive me tonight. I'm in the process of the next 4 days leaving my house, divesting myself of 95% of everything I own, and moving onto a sailboat where I'll be living down in downtown Baltimore at a very nice marina. So I'm a little dim-witted tonight, but I liked the resonance of what he was saying about the evils of monarchy. That those evils can also replicate in the in a republic. As he talked about electing people who were, and again, this goes back to the representation that Brandon was talking about. How many people can somebody successfully represent? And as you get farther and farther from the people, you're less able to understand their various wants, desires, and needs, and to be able to adequately represent them. And then you're open to be taken over by people with more money, power, and influence. But the fact that when you have, and I guess. The way I would frame this is it's one of the most important things in our democracy, our republic right now, is the whole issue of a succession, as we are facing an election where there's already a stated intent to make it essentially a permanent presidency, which becomes a monarchy, and then he talks about when succession then is taken away from elections and passed on through other means, you can get those who are too young, those who are too old, and those who are too foolish, and those who are too evil. It's more typical of monarchy. I think he said from William the Conqueror in 1044 up through the 1800s, there had been maybe two good kings. So the issue for me is not just the evil of monarchy, but the incredible importance of democratic succession and having qualifications for who can run. And after the last couple of presidencies, I would raise the issue of should there be a age limit.
Yeah, right. We have a lower age limit, but we don't have an upper age limit. It's hard to tell because like some people will have different, age in different rates. So, who knew? But also people get, mature at different rates too. So, and so arbitrarily chose a bottom range, which maybe arbitrarily choose an upper range. So, I thought it was interesting just to hear. I mean, he definitely had feelings. He had feelings about monarchy. He launched into the absurdity of it. I wrote down some words in there how specifically hereditary monarchy was ridiculous, evil, and an insult. So I had very strongly held beliefs around that. And it was fun for me to see, because I've been writing about monarchy a lot recently, and noticing and seeing the difference. For me, I'm seeing a lot of people who are sort of maturing through, and they see democracy and they're like, oh, democracy's not working. What we can replace it with is monarchy. That would be even better. And they don't recognize that we went through this already, and that's why we got to where we are right now, and we need to improve the system that we've got, and we can make it better. But to go back to the old system really is going backwards in time to old thinking, and we've already hashed out these things. But we already cycle through this stuff. Monarchy thinking was Hitler in a nutshell, taken to murderous extremes. Monarchy thinking was the robber barons during the Industrial Revolution. Prior to that, in Britain, monarchy thinking was running basically all of the boats in the Navy and the merchant vessels and the people who had to work on the boats just to survive were treated very, very poorly. This is an interesting one, which maybe we can, I'll toss this out in case it becomes a book for the future. There's this wonderful book about pirates, pirates of the Caribbean. Most of the pirates that were over here in the Caribbean were former Navy from the British who were so poorly treated and that they revolted against, and that's why they formed pirate crews, because mostly what they were doing was attacking the British ships and getting back at the people who had, whipped them and beaten them and starved them and just treated them, like subhumans, by the fact of I'm the captain, you're on the boat. And there's like all these stories of just like all the hardships. And so that was the start of pirate culture. And historically, Britain wrote the narrative on the pirates. So not that they were all great people, but we missed that context of that they were attacking the people who had attacked them for years. So an interesting. Let me ask one more. If I could add one more piece. The interesting thing about it, every pirate ship was run as a democracy.
See.
Yeah, in contrast to that, and that's a good point to come back to. 60 or 70 years ago, Burnham raised the flag of efficiency and saying that we needed to move to a managerial economy, and the economic politician who saved Greece from bankruptcy, Yanis Varoufakis, it says that now many of the functions of government have been taken over by what he calls the techno barons, and that we are no longer in a government-run society. We're run by the techno barons, and for those of us who are not staying up to date with the latest stuff with humanoid robots and advanced AI, we've become the techno serfs in what he calls an entrepreneurial economy. So the neoliberals, starting with Reagan and Hayek and Thatcher, were already moving us in the direction of a stricter government-run type of society. And it seems like we're very close now, as Pete's implying, I think, that we're very close to a monarchy under another name.
Yeah, very much along the same lines, Arnie. Yeah, that was one of the questions that came to me. I was reading it. Was, did we create a new class of kings with the extreme wealth that we have in this country unintentionally?
Could have been intentional.
Well, sure. Yeah, that's true. Very true. And most of what I have is just questions. I don't know. So, but kind of along the same lines, he mentions, the importance of having elections to have the rotation of representatives and officials with the intent that they're incentivized to enact rules that they're also going to have to live by in the same society. And I think that assumes some level of equality amongst people. And it feels like with like extreme differences in our like class society, that certain people are not living by the same rules as others, but they're responsible for maybe legislation and incentivized differently than the rest of the people. So I don't know. That was one thing I thought about.
I'm not the only one that needs a cup of coffee tonight. What about mythology, Pete? Are we ready for that?
No, I seen John was coming off mute, so I just want to give.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm definitely in the camp of needing a cup of coffee. There's a lot of good ideas flowing around, and I'm just trying to see which one I can most grab onto. One thing that stuck out to me is that, interestingly enough, in Thomas Paine's biography, they mentioned that he, for a very brief time, was a privateer, which might have potentially influenced like his more pro-democracy stances. Potentially, I don't know. That's just me guessing at this point, but just an interesting connection to our discussion. Aside from that, the other thing that came to mind is I like the idea, or I guess trying to think how I can phrase it, but I guess the thing that I'm curious about and have been struggling with myself is whether or not, I guess, democracy necessarily prevents kind of the degree of social inequality that creates very, I guess, powerful individuals, or if it facilitates it, but in a different way, where monarchy utilizes like military force, democracy potentially utilizes economic force. But at the same time, this isn't to say democracy is inherently a bad thing or that republics are a bad thing. It's more like, I guess, how can it be improved so that it doesn't quite have the social inequality?
I think that democracy, though, can only guarantee a certain amount of equality if all of the questions are up for a vote. If the opportunity is given to people in society to vote on, measures that would be definitely likely to lead to greater equality, then, but I don't think that the democracy has the power that it could, as long as what we're allowed to vote about is very restricted, and it's framed in such a way that it pretty much protects the status quo and aims for a certain amount of stability in the way things are. So democracy is a pretty, it needs a lot of help. I think it doesn't achieve what it could. I also wanted to say one of the things that really meant a lot to me reading this again was the monarchy versus myth as a mythology section, because I thought about how brave this guy was in an era where people look at the king as like God's representative on earth. I mean, when that type of thinking is ingrained in you for hundreds of years and many, many generations, the idea of saying that a king is just a person, and that, we shouldn't have to assume that God has appointed him. It reminded me very much of the courage it would take to say that, you're an atheist in a world where people say that they respect different points of view and everything, but they really don't, because there's certain things that, if you say them, you are automatically branded. So for this guy in those days to take such a stand and put it in writing, I thought was really powerful. It showed some kind of thinking that was 200 years ahead of his time. And it is still, I think about this a lot for some dumb reason, but I'm always thinking about, why is it that people just assume that the way things are is the way God intended for them to be, instead of looking at how things really originated, and that they were the compromise between people that caused things in our society to evolve as they do. So anyway, that was one of the things that meant a lot to me, because boy, I don't think I would have had the kind of courage.
Yeah.
It meant a lot to him too, because that's exactly what he said in the first paragraph of Common Sense. That what people get used to things like they are and they'll question, and then events will raise consciousness, and time is the answer, which it isn't always. But you're right where I think he was, right in the beginning of the pamphlet.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It did seem very brave. I don't know the history of Thomas Paine before that, but it does seem like he saw an awful lot and went through an awful lot before that.
He had been He had been jailed in Paris.
Okay, yeah. So, maybe he was at a point of nothing much else to lose. I don't know. But yeah, those are great points. Yeah, he tied it back to nature a few times in the pamphlet. Brought it back to nature. I like that.
Yeah, one of the things that I found really interesting about his pamphlet is that he kind of like was working between two groups in a way that kind of merges them together, where there's the religious group that kind of looks to a divine authority, and he's able to kind of show how monarchy isn't like necessary, like it isn't, I guess, proposed by the Bible or fundamental to the Bible. And at the same time, he's also able to speak to the other group that kind of looks towards nature and sees like what's natural in the world and try to be in accordance with that. And he also shows that monarchy in and of itself isn't a natural phenomenon. So he's really good at effective, as a former marketing student, I appreciate his knowledge of audiences.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that really got me about it is and one of the things I find most disturbing about what's happening today was his notion of after he quoted the section from the Bible that Samuel or one, I forget which one, said not only do you not have the right to become a king, you do not have the right to take the decision of who will be a king away from the next generation. Mm-hmm. And I think with the debate over our debate and deficit today, among the many terrible things that we're doing is we're destroying the future of the next generation because of the financial mess we're leaving them and the state of the economy in the world. Mm-hmm. I think he was dead on that.
It was interesting to hear him talk about monarchy being a learned thing or a thing that was not socially inevitable, or because I feel like everything that I see is that democracy is also a learned philosophy that has to be taught. That some people can figure out, how to do it and can put it together and teach it to others. We've seen some of the patterns of that in Greek democracy, because when the Greeks started doing it, everybody was like, "What is this? Like nobody has ever done this before." And when the Haudenosaunee and Degaruida came up with his ideas and doing that stuff for democracy and with the Iroquois nation, they had never seen this before. Nobody had ever tried this before, and it was these new ideas and concepts. And so I think democracy has to be taught for those reasons. But whenever people talk about it, and I think this creates part of the problem, is they talk about it like, oh, well, back in the day, we probably were democratic, and everybody just figured out things together. But I think one of the things that Paine was getting to is that the thing that happened before monarchy was something different. And then it wasn't working. And then monarchy came along and said, well, I can solve your problems. And everybody was like, great, because we don't know how to solve our problems. So if you know how to solve them, we'll follow you. And they did some great stuff, which is why monarchy became popular. And then we discovered something else that is even better than monarchy, which is democracy. But a lot of people, I think that's why people can get fooled into this idea that it's time for democracy to just die and let's go to this thing called techno-monarchy. Because they see democracy as this thing in the past instead of a thing in the future. And they falsely see the monarchy approach that they think is not monarchy or not the same thing or whatever it is as a way forward and better than the thing in the past, when it's really just a return. You can just see the patterns of a return to something that we've already done in the past that we already know doesn't work.
Is anybody here old enough to remember Star Trek?
Of course.
Yes. Well, which one? I mean, there's like 20 of them now.
The original Captain Kirk?
No, the original one.
Yeah.
The original one.
Of course.
With Data.
Yeah.
Data.
No, Data was
okay.
Data was way after The original was with Leonard Nimoy. And
Right, the one with Data.
Right.
The one with Data, because
Okay, that's
growing up, I look forward to a world where we would have humanoids like Data, and I think instead we're on our way to becoming the Borg.
it's funny.
Yeah, I think that's true. I actually went back and watched. I'd seen bits, but never the entire original series. So I went back and watched the original series, and now I'm going through the next generation with Data and all that kind of stuff. And I noticed a difference in the one that was run by Roddenberry in the original series, and even into the start of Next Generation, where it was more about democracy. It was more about listening. You got your post. You know your thing well. I know my job well. They know their job well. We're going to collaborate and figure this out. We're going to use science. We're going to break this down. We're going to, I might use my instinct, in the Kirk sense. But I was struck going back and looking at it, that Roddenberry had a view of the world. And some of the things I don't like about the modern Star Treks that are out right now is they are very monarchy heavy. And it's like the captain of the ship is everything. And everybody has to fall in line. And if I give you an order, you better obey it, which is the same thing that happened on the ships in Britain time, which is what we were revolting against when, we started our democracy. Not that you have to, but Laura, you've been silent, and I want to make sure that you got a chance to sort of step in and talk about things if you want to.
Yeah, thank you. I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, so this was kind of a heavy book. I mean, it was a heavy pamphlet for me just because I think so much is what we're seeing, right? And what you were just talking about too, just this cycle, and it's like we're not learning from what was clear then, and we're seeing it rise up now. So that's just a lot of what I've been thinking about and mulling over.
Yeah. I was feeling the weight of it as well.
Yes.
Should we move into, maybe skip one over to Independence is Inevitable? Because that seems like that branch is talking about.
Can we do Empire and Economic Subordination first?
Oh yeah.
Hey, Pete, can I ask, are we supposed to be seeing the slides change?
No, we're just going bullet by bullet.
Oh, bullet by
I
bullet,
didn't
sorry.
get super fancy and like drill downs on a on a slide.
Okay, gotcha. The only reason I asked is I thought I saw a slide change earlier and then I went back just checking. Okay.
There was
Okay.
an earlier, yeah.
All right, no worries. Yeah, I was just asking.
You have one other slide on here with some other questions for conversation topics.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
But yeah.
Okay. The reason why I don't want to skip over Empire and Economic Subordination is because I see such a direct link between something that disturbed me about Paine and Madison, and is clearly happening today. Paine had already seen America as a continental power. He already precursored the Monroe Doctrine, in a sense. He saw us as a continental power, and I think as a potential hegemon. And while in some places he speaks against slavery, there's also, he speaks, to go back to our Indian readings, with forked tongue, because he talks about the evils of the resistance of the Negroes and the Indians, and totally dismisses the fact that the land that this continent that he wants us to expand to is peopled already and has no sense. And so I take that as part of the argument against the arguments against DEI today, because it is so clear that this othering of other people is so deeply rooted in our history, in our parables, and in our mythology. And that's allowed us to Britain to take the wealth out of India, and for us to take the wealth out of other countries, expropriate them, which brings us to why I think it's so fundamental today, because I think what's happening in Burkina Faso with Captain Traoré and with the unification of Africa and with the development of BRICS is essentially the global South saying to us what Madison and Paine were saying to Britain. And in fact, we have become Britain to the world. And to me, that's one of the most powerful things that came out of my reading of this is our inability to see past the mythologies that we live with and recognize the facts that are staring us in the face. And so saith the preacher.
Yeah, yeah. Burkina Faso is interesting to hear some of his speeches. So Ibrahim, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Traoré?
Traoré.
Was it?
Traoré.
Traoré.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, because he talks about a lot of those things. Arnie and I were having a discussion about BRICS. I want to separate the conversation topic from BRICS separate from Burkina Faso. I have not heard Traoré talk about BRICS at all. And
No, I'm just saying that they're similar. They're separate, but similar.
yeah, it's about domination of a large economical force and different ways to combat the domination of a large economical force. The background for anybody who's not familiar with BRICS is that, like most of the economic major things that happen in the world, are driven by the U.S. currency. So in order to fight against that, a couple nations got together. It was Brazil, Russia, China, India, and I forget what the fifth one was that came in later. Now, for me,
There's now over 20.
yeah, now it's gotten a lot larger. It's over 20.
I know the S is South Africa.
South Africa, right.
Hmm.
Now, what worries me about BRICS is you've got several countries that have already fully re-embraced monarchy at the center of that. And so I am concerned about BRICS in that it stems from monarchy thinking. And I don't see that in Traoré's speeches. And he's talking instead about, the stuff that's being stolen from the people. I'm trying to recap his speech really quickly just for context, so everybody knows what we're talking about, especially on the video too. There's go watch some of his speeches. I think that will help accuracy. But he talks about how deals have been made between the economic powers with the countries of Africa, and it's usually with the government. So then a big corporation or a country goes in, takes the resources out, uses it elsewhere, and gives back like a tiny, less than 1% fraction of the amount of money they make off the resources. And usually that fraction goes to the leadership of that country, so they continue to have access, and none of it goes to the people. And then those corporations and those companies come back around with charity. And they're like, oh, we'll take care of you. You're having trouble. You're not eating very well. You've got sickness. We can take care of that for you. We'll come in and do. And so they're taking all of the money and the wealth out of the country, and then again bringing back a fraction of it to then, in a token way, take care of the people that they just took all those resources from. And that's what his content of his speech is about. And he's talking about we need to own our own resources and be part of the economics of the world, instead of letting these other countries determine what our participation is in the world.
Nice summary.
Cool. Yeah, if I got any of that wrong, let me know.
Mm-mm.
I'm eager to hear what parallels you guys see between colonial America and what's happening today.
Yeah, I did. Our Madison's protest against Britain dividing up the world into four areas and seeing it as expropriation and taking the wealth out of the rest of the world into Britain is pretty much what we've been doing for a long time. And the breakup of the world order that started with Bretton Woods is an attempt that can lead in many directions.
So it's
hopefully to more justice and equity.
What's interesting to me then is that you see the parallel as the United States, and the United States has now become England and is doing many of the things. But what I thought the parallel, and this is a different kind of view, I thought the parallel was that we're seeing the end of, I guess, what we've been accepting more and more as liberal government. We're seeing a dramatic slashing and end to that. And I think that where I see a parallel is that just as monarchy and the governance in that by the aristocrats had to change. It got to a point where it wasn't accepting, it wasn't working, and it had to change. To a large extent, I think the backlash and some of the things that are happening now in Congress, and there with some parallels in other parts of the world, is it's similar in that what we've accepted and found to be working and good about kind of liberal government, the way we are accustomed to it, is being changed profoundly, whether or not we all agree that it should. So to me, that was a big parallel, that something new is coming, and we don't know what it is or how to make sure it will work better and work for everyone. It's kind of scary, but I see that as a critical parallel. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound crazy or anything?
Sound crazy. I was just having a conversation the other day with a libertarian, and I'll say it this way, he made some great points. So he was supportive of a lot of the tearing down of the different agencies in government. Mm-hmm. And we're getting down into why, and then he starts rattling off these things, and he's like, here's this thing, and this is creating a huge amount of waste. And there's like, and as he started getting into a little bit more details of it, I started, it stopped becoming black and white. And so I was thankful for that conversation inside of that. I was remembering back, I know, there are huge contracts, billion-dollar contracts, and somebody was there from the DoD as well, who was talking about, we have spent billions for companies to go build military equipment and devices, and then it never gets delivered, and we never get those dollars back. Mm-hmm. And that is hugely, hugely wasteful. So the solution that's being applied right now is they're cutting all the systems that are doing, they're cutting Department of Education. I work with a lot of education and theater and arts groups and people who are in the schools. That's where they get their money from. So the Department of Education is running all the grants. All that money is gone. Schools are hurting. The solution to the problem of big government wasn't to cut the programs that are spending $1 billion on military. The solution was to cut the programs that were actually changing kids' lives in the schools. The solution is wrong, but the problem is real. And when we let it get to a place where things just happen and we have no control over it, and we're taking big chunks of money and just that come from people's taxes and just giving it away to other groups. So an article today, we just gave $20 million to Argentina. All of these things, people are looking at this and they're like, no, we got to do something about this. And Some people are like, well, what we got to do is we got to shut down the government. And other people are like, well, no, we got to go in and we got to fix the government. Government is good. But we're in this mix of everybody disagrees on the solution, but we do agree on the problem.
That's well stated, I think.
You may not have heard, Pete, but the government's actually shut down.
I know, one side's winning right now. And what we don't do that I wish we did is capture better the metrics. Because we're in an experiment right now. One side won, and so they're doing all the stuff that they think is going to fix the government, get rid of waste and all this kind of stuff. But there are no metrics, where I think we're going to find out much later just everything that happened that wasn't intended. But if your intent is to reduce the waste in government, and then like the Doge has been one of the worst ways to reduce waste. It's created more waste than it's gotten rid of by all the statistics, and we're losing the statistics now that the government is shut down. And everything along that way, we don't have a way to measure whether or not the idea of making government smaller is actually making government smaller.
Mm-hmm. Or better.
I think we have more of a handle on it. And to go back to our forgotten history, the history of civilizations, hegemons, and empires growing larger and more complex and taking in more resources from the world, and then moving to overly inflated money and not being able to pay their debts and getting overextended and having too much of a military has happened at least 7 times in history. This is not new what we're going through, and because we don't know history, the metrics are there. The money supply is there, the inflation is there, the data is there. And the problem is that we can't get control of the budget and the deficit without doing tremendous harm to a whole bunch of people because we've waited too long.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we just keep printing money.
And the flip side of that, like, yes, the flip side of that same story, and this is what's so difficult about it, that $1 billion contract to the supplier for the DoD kept a whole bunch of people in jobs. A huge portion of people here in this state and in other states around the country, people had lives, they had jobs, they had houses, they had food, they had all of this stuff because of that money. It's just we didn't get anything back for it. But we did support the United States and its citizens.
Again, if you go back to Russell Kirk's 1953 book, The Mind of the Conservative, we came out of World War II with a 71% tax rate and a 60% middle class. And Kirk and Bill Buckley and a whole bunch of other people decided that the middle class had become too powerful. Lewis Powell, who later became a Supreme Court justice, wrote a memo to the top corporate leaders of America saying, we need to get control of this. The middle class is getting way too powerful. And so starting after 53 and right on through Project 2025, the project has been to reduce the size of the middle class and to move power and wealth upwards. And it's been very, very successful, and it's been very purposeful.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious to know, what do you guys think the United States and government and federal programs are going to look like 5 years from now?
I think my guess is depending on how, I think we're going to be in a point of flip-flop where if it flips who has control in 3 more years, then if the Democrats take over, they're just going to start putting all the programs back. And then if it flips again in 4 years, they're just going to go and strip them away. And then it flips again in 4 years, they're going to go and put them back in. We don't have a moderating force, which is part of why I'm working with Forward Party to try to create some kind of a moderating force on it. But right now we're setting ourselves up to just do these partisan battles again year after year after year.
In which case we lose sources of resources, and we print too much money, and we overinflate, and everybody suffers.
Mm-hmm.
No
Am I
one has
wrong?
I agree with both of you guys. I mean, nobody has any good feeling about what this is going to do. I think if some of these changes in government programs that have been done in a really draconian manner, if these had been thought through and debated and discussed so that we could clearly say, this is the way we're going to do it. We're going to begin by changes here that are going to have a positive impact that's measurable, and then changes here with a positive impact. It's just so slash and burn. I keep thinking about what this is going to look like. I mean, my sister, not to make it too personal or anything, but my sister has been working at HHS for a long time. She's a nurse educator, and this is her area. All of the nurses and doctors that she's aware of that she's worked with, and the HR people were they were furloughed, and then I think Monday they received word that their jobs are just terminated. And the thing is that the work that they were doing in many cases was bringing the only medical care to some rural areas, really poor rural areas. So everything the government does, it doesn't necessarily bring about a measurable benefit, but there's certain things that the market will never take care of. And that's where there has to be, especially when you're talking about the health and the lives of people, there has to be some way that people, even the most conservative people, will recognize that there is a role for government to play in some of the intangibles. And I'm very, very concerned about what this will look like in 5 years, because at least from one perspective, as a former educator, I can already see the impact it's going to have on poor kids, and the numbers of poor kids are only going to grow in the next several years. So it isn't going to be a small pocket of kids. I can clearly see the impact that this is going to have on the health of people. But 20 years from now, I wish I could figure out how is this all going to sort of level itself out. There's got to be some way at which it gets tempered down or it becomes the new norm, but I just can't visualize what that's going to look like. I know I'm glad I'm not going to be around, because it's just right. I can't think of a good thing that's going to come from this because of the way it's happening in such a drastic manner.
I have thoughts on a dream, but Brandon took his mute off, so I want to make sure I give him a chance to talk.
No, what she was just saying, and I'm sorry, your name isn't there, but
I know.
it's okay. You don't have to tell me your name.
Right?
But I was hitting hard, and I didn't know where to go. So I can collect my thoughts, Pete, and then if you want to go now, if you know what you want to say, go ahead.
I have a dream. I don't know how we're going to get there, but I think we are at the technological point here. It's not something we could have done up until this point, but we have the ability with technology right now that everybody could designate with their taxes what they want to support. So if we wanted to go in and say, like me, like I want to support the Department of Education with my taxes. And maybe somebody else is like, I want to support the Department of Defense with my taxes. And other people could choose, and we could participate in that way. I think one of the problems is the draconian nature, that it's an all or nothing. We're either going to decide Department of Education is out, even though a bunch of people want it. And then the flip side, is we're going to decide healthcare is out, even though a bunch of people want it. Because some people don't want it, it's gone for everybody. Or if some people do want it, it's there for everybody. what if we had that ability through technology and we actually applied technology in the IRS that we could say and sort of earmark, we earmark bills, they do it for us, let's earmark our taxes.
Wow. I would love that.
That seems too rational.
Intelligent,
Yeah. So going
That's
back to
rational things don't always carry.
but it's brilliant.
yeah, I have to think that through, but it sounds smart. Yeah. No, I mean what you were saying is like asking like, what is this all going to look like? Yeah, I mean, one of my thoughts was I think trust has been broken so much that it's going to be hard to repair that trust. Just not just recently, but I think it's been an ongoing problem for a while. And yeah, I'll admit I listen to a lot of podcasts and I listen to some ones that are very concerning. There are pockets of hope, and I think we have to hold on to those. But yeah, like you were mentioning the agencies being slashed, and I was listening to an interview with I think he was a chief. He was he had a high position, maybe a chief medical director, something. He was again high position in USAID at the time when it started being cut drastically, and I think there's hardly anything left there now. And we talk about measurables, and they estimate that the cuts that were made to USAID are gonna basically cause like hundreds of thousands of deaths every year, like 300,000 deaths is their current measurement every year. And they say the damage that's been done just within the past 6 months would take decades to rebuild.
Mhm.
That's what's been done. And this person, who I think because he was an appointee, he had already switched out of his position at the time, but he's trying to document everything that's happening, the effects of losing USAID. And I know they were the kind of cherry picking certain components of USAID that they found to be waste, but this guy's trying to document everything that's really happening at the time. So that was kind of a hard one to listen to, but bringing it back to Ford a little bit, there is a group called Humanity Ford. They're not directly with the Ford Party, but they're the same word. They are actually a lobbyist. They're like a lobby for the American people, and they are going back to children in poverty. I think there is some bipartisan momentum of reestablishing the child tax credit to lift children out of poverty. That's some of the work that Humanity Forward is doing. So again, pockets of hope, but yeah, I have a lot of concerns myself.
Yeah, that was a good one. I think that's another one that Andrew Yang at least is part of, if he didn't start. He tells the story of the child tax credit, where they actually got it passed and had eliminated a huge amount of malnutrition for kids across the United States. And all they had to do was pass a bill to extend it for another 10 years. And they couldn't get it together to just extend it. So it expired because it had a limit on it. And all that funding just went away.
Yeah, so I want to say, so I think Andrew Yang, he might be half joking, but I think he said he partly got the idea of Humanity Forward from The Onion, because The Onion had an article about, hey, how about we have a lobby for the American people? And so he started Humanity Forward. Is like, we have all these lobbyists for special interests. Why don't we just have one for the people? It's kind of interesting. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, we need more lobbyists for the people. We don't need more lobbyists. We need more lobbyists for the people. All right. So I think we got into economic subordination, parallels of colonial America. Maybe into independence was inevitable, or we could launch into that if we want to say anything more. I think we're sort of seeing a little bit of that in both directions. For the Republicans, they were like, you've been doing this to us. They have their opinions about what has been done to them, and so they are revolting against what has been done from the part of the Democrats, and the Democrats are also revolting against what is being done by the Republicans. And so everything, that's where I kind of see some of the flip-flop, is everybody's reaching a point where, you know, some of these things are just inevitable. If you keep, you know, doing things that people hate without giving them a voice, eventually it's going to break.
And reconciliation will be impossible, just as it was 200 years ago. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, impossible.
That's a good point, because that's what Paine had in there, is that, you know, we have taken up arms and killed a bunch of British people. If we do reconciliation and now let those people govern us again, do you think they're going to be fair?
Mm-hmm.
No, they're going to take retribution on us. So, yeah, he was saying, and also that the other thing in common sense was that as a protector or as a governor, they're so far away back at that time. Anything that came up, a couple months to send it over to England, a couple months to come back. Even if somebody's attacking us, a couple months to send a letter over to England, a couple months for the ship to come back. And at that point, all the damage is done. And so the whole point was that when there is a distance between the need and the restitution, and the government can't fill that need fast enough, then it is inevitable that the people will need to fill it for themselves.
There's a point that he makes that's universal in terms of social movement theory, in terms of irreconcilability, and he said it became impossible to reconcile after the Boston Massacre. In social movement theory, that's called the catalytic moment, when everything turns on a dime. And Kent State came close to that in my day. And those who are ready to seize the moment when that catalytic moment occurs are the ones that have the best chance of moving in a new direction.
If I can get sci-fi philosophical for a moment, I find it fascinating that there are a bunch of storylines talking about retribution in this way. And usually the way it's told is that something horrible happened, the world fell apart, and we developed a new way of living. And it's working. And then somebody finds out that somebody that is an integral part of this, or they thought was their friends, was actually on the opposite side of the war back in the day. And back then, they were ruthless, and they were killing, and they were doing all these horrible things, and nobody knew, and they were never held to justice. And so in the sci-fi world, in that sense, they're like, oh my God, this person has to pay for their crimes. And it becomes retribution. And what it does is it starts off another war. They had gotten to a place of peace where everybody who was doing bad things stopped doing bad things and had moved beyond that. But by going for retribution of you must pay for the things you did in the past, that effort actually ended up creating more of what they had left behind. And it was just this, I always find these things fascinating in that there's not necessarily a good or a bad or a right or a wrong. You know, is there a point of forgiveness where we just say, what's in the past is in the past because we are at a new place now, and maybe people have learned certain things and they decided they're not going to do that? Do we really need to punish, you know, certain things if it's going to result in something bad? You know, I think everybody's afraid, or at least in those movies, they're afraid that, oh, that person will start doing it again. And so that's why we have to arrest them.
There's a lot of positive models out there for how to deal in a positive way with those kinds of things. The Peace and Reconciliation movement in South Africa, the victim offender restoration programs between victims and the criminals that robbed them, and a bunch of other programs. And I'm one of the things that's hopeful for me is if those collaborative problem-solving methods that are found in divorce mediation and so many other places becomes more well-known and and more part of our toolkit that we move toward, where instead we do move toward retribution, but the other models are out there and they work. They're just not well known and not utilized enough. As you know what better than I do, Pete, because that's what you do.
A bunch of the things that I do. I do it in corporate America, and I always see corporate America as a microcosm of countries. Everything that happens on the country level also happens inside corporate America.
I think you're right. Do you mind if I ask, how have you all decided the next reading that we're going to do? Is there a syllabus somewhere that you shared already?
We haven't talked about that yet. No, we discussed that at the end of each meeting.
All right.
Do you have one you want to recommend?
No, I just wanted to find out how it works, because I felt like you all mentioned some really, really interesting things that I feel like I need to hurry up and read. So I just didn't know if there was like a plan already that I just missed.
You want to do that now, Pete?
I'm not trying to change things. I just didn't know.
No, you're fine. You're fine. We do that. That's how we do it. We just get to a point in the conversation and say, "What's next?" Or the way it worked last time is, "God, don't make me read any more Federalist Papers."
Oh, I wish I had been here for that. I love the Federalist Papers. I wish I had.
Yeah, that's how we jumped onto common sense, because we got tired of the Federalists. But we'll go back to the Federalists one day, I'm sure.
Okay.
I have a recommendation anyway. I don't remember the title, but Jill Lepore, who is an attorney and a historian at Harvard, and writes like an angel, has a new book out on America.
What's the name and what's the author again?
Jill, Lepore. Let me Google it while you guys talk. Let me find the title.
Okay.
Title of Jill Lepore's new book. Title of Jilllepore's new book. We the People.
Okay.
We the People, a history of the U.S. Constitution.
Sounds
From
like
the point of view of the people, how the people experienced the law under the Constitution throughout American history.
So it's called We the People by, what was her name again?
Jill, Jill Lepore, Lepore, lawyer and historian at Harvard. A marvelous writer.
Put that in the chat. I'm also adding in the pirate book
Oh.
Yeah.
that I mentioned earlier. It's called The Invisible Hook. Pirate.
I feel like this was a suggestion like many months ago.
Well,
But like
we
maybe
had
2
the
years ago, this
other-
was a suggestion.
Yeah, we had like the other book club like
Right.
several years back. I put this
Yeah.
on the list. We never got to it, but it's always been a good book. So the subtitle was The Hidden Economics of Pirates.
Author?
Peter Leeson. So that's in the chat now too. The problem with book clubs is you start getting into it and it just becomes this branch and you're like, ooh, this one topic that we talked about today would be great for these 3 books, and that other topic would be great for these 2 books, and eventually you've got this backlog of books, and so we can.
If we do pick Lepore's book, I think we need to check the number of pages, and if it's anything over 250, we need to split it up over a number of weeks.
Good point. Trying to see if I can see pages. The pirate one is 288 pages. Let me look up Lepore.
Oh, that's a selling point.
We the People, History of...
Hey, Arnie, can I ask you about the last bullet? Because I read that, and I don't think I read that part of the comments of the pamphlet, the best time was when it happened. Talking about if it was too soon, this wouldn't have worked. If it's too late, this wouldn't have worked. And I didn't quite fully grasp it all. Do you have a good grasp of explaining that piece of it?
I don't. I did, but what I remember is that that because of the Boston Massacre.
Oh, okay.
That
I thought it
that
had
was
something to
that
do
was
with the
sort of
balance of numbers or something.
yeah. Yeah, that had taken us to the point of no return. That goes back to the opening sentence that that owner, I forgot the name, was saying that there comes a time. There comes a time. So it sort of parallels the beginning. That there comes a time when things happen, and the Boston Massacre just became a point of no return. And then he went on from there to say, and we are ready. We are prepared. We have the iron. We have the trees. We can build the ships. We're a continent. We're going forward into the future as a major power in the future, and that we cannot defend our trade. We will be subjected to England, and it's just it has now become clear, and it has become clear because of those facts and because Paine brought them together in common sense and made them out there so that everybody back like the day when we had Walter Cronkite and everybody was on the same page. Common sense did that in those days and brought everybody to the point that the time is now. If we don't do it now, it won't happen.
Gotcha. Okay.
So the decision about the next book is?
I thought I might throw up a poll.
I don't care. Either one is so good.
Yeah, they're both good.
Why do we do one and then the other? And I don't care in what order. Because the piracy sounds fun.
I'm just going to vote for the pirate book as a nice sort of break or different perspective. Yeah.
And I did find the page numbers, and it's in chat. Oh, that's different. The 720 pages for We the People, and 288 for Invisible Hook. So we have to break up We the People.
Yeah.
If we do Invisible Hook, we all have to dress in costume.
Right.
And we'll have to talk like pirates with the whole thing.
I think that'll be a fun book.
Historically accurate costumes. Because maybe they didn't actually dress the way we think pirates did.
Okay.
Shiver me timbers.
All right, so let's see. And what was it? For okay, let's see if this works.
So we're starting with the invisible. Oh, this is okay.
All right, should be multiple choice. So if you don't care, you can select both. If you do care, pick one. All right, we got 5 in, we got 6. That's everybody. All right, we'll see the results here. Share the results. It was overwhelming. All of you wanted the Invisible Hook. 0 votes for We the People. So, next book.
I think we want to read that one too. I think it was just
yes.
Yeah.
the group think was already swayed.
No, it was very clear. Everybody hates Jill Lepore. That was made. That's it.
Jill Lepore is one of my heroes.
Okay.
You did a great interview about this book on The Daily Show. If you haven't heard about it yet, you want to take a look at it.
Jill Lepore's book?
Yeah, Jill Lepore.
Oh, okay.
She was on herself talking about her book.
Oh, great. Okay.
Oh yeah, she's a great interview. She's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'll have to watch that. Yeah.
All right. So next time will be Peter Leeson and The Invisible Hook.
Now, does that need to be broken up, or are we just going to take the whole thing?
It's 288. Does that need to be broken up? I don't know.
Maybe not.
It's been a while since
Yeah,
I've
we
read
can
it,
do
so
it.
I don't remember.
All
We
right.
got a month. That's 10 pages a day.
And since you're here, you also
Depends on when you start.
to participate in the poll of when we hold it. So we had been doing on the second Thursdays. And then for the past couple of months, it was not possible, so we were doing the third Thursdays. So if we were looking at between November 13th or November 20th, I actually have something on November 20th. But does anybody else? How is everybody for November 13th?
I'm open both days.
Yeah, I'm out of town the 17th through Thanksgiving, so.
Oh, right, it's getting towards Thanksgiving, yep. All right, so it sounds like November the 13th will be the next one.
Yeah.
We'll do the Invisible Hook. All right, we're scheduled to go to 8:30. I've sort of hopped into that soon. We got some questions if we want to talk about it. I think we hit some of these, especially about BRICS and Burkina Faso, monarchy as mythology. What does common sense mean in an age of algorithmic persuasion? And what do we need to resist not only empire, but
That
any...
first one is really important. I just read an article the other day about what Oracle is doing in terms of the surveillance society and algorithmic persuasion. And they have gotten so good at collecting every tiny bit of stuff on us. And let me tell a quick story. Years ago, I worked for a major advertising company in New York, and they used Eckhart Hesse's psychology. Eckhart Hesse had been lying in bed one night reading, and his wife came in and said, "The light's not right, dear. Your eyes are really dilated. You need a stronger light." And he said, "No." And he realized that his eyes. The dilation of the eye reflects your cathexis, your happiness. So he invented a little black box that can measure the dilation of the eye, and he presented pictures and noticed that he presented his male graduate students with bunnies and babies and Playboy bunnies, and the Playboy bunnies, their eyes just pop like that. So his first client was at Tiffany's. And as the newlyweds came in to buy flatware for their new homes, they wanted Danish modern, but they hooked them up to the black box, and what they really wanted was the heavily embossed silverware of their grandparents. So what Tiffany's did was display Danish modern and stock embossed, and then train their salespeople how to switch. That little thing is now on steroids. And Oracle, as it collects all of its data on us through the surveillance, and they're collecting everything, is now using that kind of psychology to target us with messages in a subliminal way. And so in the age of algorithmic persuasion and media fragmentation, not only are we fragmented, not only do we no longer have a Walter Cronkite, no longer do we listen to the same thing, but the people that are out there are bombarding us with stuff that's so subliminal and so effective that it takes a good deal of restraint in what we watch, what we say, how we respond, and in being critical of the notions that come to us from the back of the head. Oh, I feel like a Big Mac today. Do I really, or had I just seen something subliminal? Because on the videos, they were able to, when you watch an ad, they're able to put something like if it's for a male football player fan who likes to drink beer. Somewhere in the corner, there may be just barely visible, except to the subconscious, a curvaceous female. That you just wouldn't at the conscious level recognize, but it's there for a split second. So I know that's what that question calls out for me. I'm scared to death about what they're doing to us.
Reminds me of a topic. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brandon.
No. I didn't have anything.
Reminds me of a topic that was coming up in another conversation about why I brought up this topic, which was the two types of science. That we use the word science to represent two completely different things, because science can be used in two different ways. And on the one side, Arne, you just gave an example of that. Like, there are people who are using and applying science to manipulate viewers and people and purchasers, customers, to achieve a goal, which is you can use science for that purpose. You can set a goal. I want this. I want people to buy more of this. I want to sell more of these things. I want to get more attention, more people, and science will get you there. And then on the flip side, you've got things that Neil deGrasse Tyson is the best example of this, where he's talking about the scientific method, where everything that comes up is peer-reviewed, and we have a thing that shows up, and it may be true, it may not be true, but we, as scientists in the scientific method, can debate those things back and forth and look at those and figure out which one is better and have a discussion, and it leads to a better understanding of ourselves and of the world and everything here. And so both of those things are science. And so I think that sometimes when people are like, oh, science is bad, they're talking about manipulative science.
Yeah.
They're not thinking about like a Neil deGrasse Tyson type of science. And so I think that the fact that we use that same word for both things, we might be in an argument with somebody who's like, I don't believe in science, I think science is bad. And we're like, no, science is good, but we're actually talking about two different things.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, on the good side of it, I remember, I'm forgetting who was it that founded Apple, but when he was building the company, he said, I'm not going to develop products for what people want. I'm going to develop products for what they don't know that they need.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Steve Jobs.
And that's a good thing in some ways, which makes it even more complicated.
Yeah. There's a story that was told in startup communities that I was in, that Steve Jobs story of harkening back to Ford and talking about, how Ford had said, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. And I think Jobs had referenced that, and he's like, our job is not to give them what they ask for. Our job is to give them what they really want or what they need. But the thing that people don't often know about Apple, because they keep it secret, and anybody who participates in this program is not allowed to talk about the problem they do, or the program, is they do a ton of user research. So they bring people in, they put products in front of them, they test it out so that they can find out what people actually want. And it is different than what they say, and that's one of the classics of usability testing. The phrase I like for it is, people are notoriously bad at predicting their own behavior, but they're really good at telling you what their problems are. But your job is to find the best solution for the problem, not the solution that they ask for.
Mm-hmm.
Thought for the week or the month.
This might be a little bit off topic, but it just reminded me, I'm working with a Dutch design firm, and one of the guys on the call we'll zoom in. He's the main designer, and he has a big poster behind his desk that says, "I like it. What is it?" Right? Because it's just this immediate response of, "That's cool. I don't know if I want it. Maybe I'm intrigued enough by it, but it looks really cool. Tell me what it can do, and I can let you know." But it's just a very funny poster. It sums it up.
We feel it before we know it.
Yes.
I hear that Jobs was the same way, like working for an Apple. Like a lot of people didn't understand because he would come in and he would feel it first and say, "No, can't do that. Nope, don't do that. You're there." But if you pushed back and gave him a litany and like, "Well, under these circumstances, this happened, and this got this feedback," and you actually broke it down, Jobs would say, "Okay, go ahead." But his first instinct was so powerful and forceful that people were just like, "Oh, better do what the boss says." But he actually liked the people who pushed back as long as you came with data. Right. Well, we can certainly wrap early unless somebody wants to go off on a
What
tangent about AI and big data.
what forms of civic imagination are needed to resist not just empire but epistemic control?
Arnie, can you clarify epistemic control, please?
Yeah, it's what we were just talking about with Oracle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, basically we are bombarded with so much stuff that, and we're so isolated from each other, and we've been, and this community has been so destroyed that I guess the immediate answer would be, how many of us are going to be out there for No King's Day this Saturday?
Gotcha. Okay.
Mm.
Okay.
At the same time, on the same venue, is No King's Day going to change anything that's happening?
No, but the value will be in that people will get together and they will feel more confident about working together for a better future, because they'll see that they are not the only one and that the cost of their participation and their effort is going to be worth it, because there are many, many other people who feel the same way.
Okay, I'm gonna depress myself and everybody here with a little fact that came my way within the last week that I'm still chomping my teeth over. The middle-aged and slightly older multimillionaires who are fomenting this movement to the right are the tech baby boomers who got into tech early and became millionaires, and their cultural starting point of the current day multimillionaires that are pushing the conservative agenda were the kids that were at the concert at Woodstock.
So you're saying the same kids that were at Woodstock became tech?
Are now the multimillionaires that are pushing the conservative agenda. I didn't see that coming.
I see this as hopeful news or thing. So, and be cautious that I'm not advocating for people to go out and buy ADA as a cryptocurrency coin. It's on this thing that's a blockchain called Cardano. But what I do want to talk about is I had the fortune a few years ago they brought myself in with a bunch of other people to develop a governance model. And They are doing some wonderful things in that space. So they have a fund that comes out that's like, I think it's up in the millions of dollars worth, that goes off and funds initiatives. But the way it starts is the community gets together and proposes a bunch of problems to be solved, and then everybody in the community gets to vote on those problems. Then once those problems are set, then they accept proposals on how to solve those problems. And then everybody that has ADA as the currency gets to vote. And this is, I actually brought in some of the ideas, and they had some of these ideas, and it coalesced on this idea of earmarking your tax dollars. It's the same concept. So whoever owns ADA votes on those proposals. And if those proposals get enough votes, then the fund gets delivered to those teams who then work on solving those problems.
Nice.
And a little while later, they do another round and they put more money into the economy. They have another round of problems that gets revoted, another round of proposals. And it's all based, it's community roundup based. The community comes up with the solutions, community comes up with the money, community votes, and they even have a council that's elected by the community to handle any problems and to basically operate as like the board of directors. So it is possible across a worldwide community of thousands or hundred thousands, or I don't remember how many people are actually in there right now. But
You say the name of the group is Pete? Ada?
the currency is called ADA.
Oh, the
The
currency is called
blockchain is called Cardano.
Cardano.
Now it's been a few years. I don't know where they are right now, but it was a very satisfying project to work on.
I hate to do this, but I'm gonna have to leave. But I'm really glad to have met you guys. I'm so grateful to have found this book club. And I look forward to talking with everybody next month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have a nice evening. Have a good
Bye.
one.
Thanks for joining. Yeah, I think we're kind of naturally wrapping up here anyway. So we got our next book. It's been a great discussion. So thanks for everybody for joining in.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks, Arnie and Pete, for leading this. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, little luck. I'll be talking to you next week from the
Yeah.
salon in my boat.
Enjoy your new boat, Arnie.
Yeah,
That sounds
enjoy
cool.
Nice.
All right. Have a nice one.
Y'all.
Take care.